Hey everyone, welcome back. Hope you're having a fantastic day so far. So in today's video, we have more good news for Social Security as they are cutting more red tape. We're going to be going over the changes that they plan on making. Plus, should we really be worried about the government cutting our Social Security benefits? We'll be covering that as well. But before we go ahead and dive into the main content of today's video, if you wouldn't mind helping me out real quickly by just giving this video a like, that just helps out with the good old YouTube algorithm, and also consider subscribing to my channel if you have not already. Plus, if you would like to receive up to $200 in free stock, in a pinned comment below, I will be leaving a link to Robinhood. All you have to do is once you click on that link, is just sign up for a free account and then simply link your bank account. You do not even have to make an opening deposit. At that point in time, Robinhood will be sending you one free stock worth all the way up to $200. And if you'd rather just have the cash, all you have to do is once you receive the free stock, is just sell it for what it's worth and then transfer the cash value right back to your bank account. Okay, so diving right into our first story of today's video, we have some good news as the Social Security Administration is going to cut even more red tape. We're going to be covering the details right here, this article from Newsweek. They say that Social Security cuts red tape for disabled workers. So the Social Security Administration said on Wednesday that it will reduce how far back the work history of disabled workers it takes into account when reviewing requests for benefits, a move that it said will help reduce the time to decide on applications. When looking at relevant past work experience, the government will now examine the previous 5 years only. Before the shift, the agency looked at 15 years of work history that, it said, made it tough for applicants as they sometimes forgot details that led to mistakes reporting of their history. The agency also said that it will ignore as irrelevant in the application process work experience that was performed for less than a month. And the SSA commissioner in Martin O'Malley said in a statement that this new rule will lessen the burden and time our applicants face when filling out information about their work history and will make it easier for them to focus on the most current and relevant details about their past work. And the SSA, of course, has also faced extended criticism in the past over wait times and how long it takes to respond to user queries from customers. The announcement on Wednesday will help expedite applications for users, the agency said. So another statement here, it will reduce administrative burdens for applicants and help more people with disabilities receive government benefits and services if they are eligible. The SSA also said that in a statement. And the final rule announces updates that will improve the application process for disability benefits and reduce the time applicants wait for a decision. So obviously that is good news. That should expedite the process because over time it's taken longer and longer. And really 15 years of work experience, that's, I don't know why that was ever a thing. It really should have only been, in the past 5 or 10 years. So this is obviously a good move, and hopefully that expedites the whole process. And possible, like user error, going back 15 years, if they then have to say, oh, we need 15 years, we see you only submitted 10 years, and then it takes even longer for someone's application to get approved or move through the different steps. Now, in some other news, of course, we're going to be examining a possible cut into Social Security benefits. We're going to be looking at this article here by the Motley Fool. They say that lawmakers have never let Social Security cuts benefits before. Why is everyone so worried about it now? So they start out by saying, don't panic. Your Social Security paycheck isn't guaranteed to shrink. There's a reason that 42% of Americans are convinced that Social Security might one day cease to exist. According to 2023 data from Northwestern Mutual, the program is facing a serious decline in payroll tax revenue, its primary source of funding, in the coming years as older workers retire in droves. And first off, before we go further into this article, there's sometimes a misconception among Americans about how their Social Security works. Whenever you work, of course, if you look at your paycheck, you have different taxes taken out. So you have like your state taxes if you have to pay state income tax. Then you have your federal tax. And then you'll have something called the FICA tax. And that's basically money that's going to the Social Security Trust Fund. and money to Medicare as well. So that's going to be 6.2% going into the Social Security Trust Fund if you're an employee. And if you're self-employed, you have to pay both your portion as well as the employer portion. So when you're an employee, your employer, your boss is going to be matching the other 6.2%. So that's going to total 12.4% in total. So basically this money is going into the Social Security Trust Fund, and that money is invested into treasuries if there's an excess, and whatever's in there is going to be paying out to people who are currently receiving Social Security benefits. Now, a lot of people, including myself, actually, several years ago, I thought that whenever I was, being taxed on that money, that it was going to like my own personal stash and it was being saved up. So whenever I reached the full retirement age, I would be able to, access that money. There was money being set aside for myself personally. Well, no, what actually ends up happening is those paying into the system 10 years ago, they were already being paid out to people who were receiving benefits 10 years ago. And then whenever they started receiving benefits 10 years later, the benefits that they were receiving were actually being paid into the system by people who are currently working. And so for me right now, I'm paying benefits into the system, and people who are currently receiving benefits are the ones receiving a portion of the amount that I'm, of course, paying into the system. And I'm going to have to be completely reliant, me and other people who haven't yet started receiving Social Security, we're going to be completely reliant on younger people still paying into the system. And of course, there being enough young people paying into the system where I can get, enough of a benefit to get by at that point in time. So it's not like your own personal stash whenever you're paying in. You're completely reliant on people below you continuing to pay into the system. And that's why we have a lot of people calling Social Security a Ponzi scheme, because we're completely reliant on the people, behind us to continue paying into the system. That way we can continue getting our fair benefit, even though over all of the years we have worked and paid into the system. Now the article goes on to say that lawmakers, of course, have options for preventing cuts. So Social Security cuts have the potential to upend millions of people's finances. That's something lawmakers are aware of, so it's fair to assume that they'll do what they can to prevent benefit cuts in the not so distant future, even if they do seem to be dragging their feet to some degree. In fact, current and future retirees can take comfort in the fact that lawmakers have multiple options for avoiding Social Security cuts. One is to raise the wage cap for Social Security tax purposes. Currently, workers don't pay into the Social Security on wages above $168,600, but lifting that threshold could pump more much-needed revenue into the program. There's also the possibility of raising the Social Security tax rate, which is currently at 12.4%. Is that something workers today might grumble about? Absolutely, but is it a viable solution? It sure is. There's also the idea of moving the full retirement age back by a few years instead of leaving it at 67 for workers born in 1960 or later. Some might argue that forcing workers to wait longer to be eligible for their complete monthly Social Security benefit is a terrible idea, but given a general increase in life expectancies, it's also not a totally unreasonable solution. Now, I want to go back to the article title here that said that lawmakers have never let Social Security cut benefits before. Why is everyone so worried about it now? But one of the problems with that title, of course, is that yes, they have actually cut benefits before, because the last major Social Security reform took place back in a law that was passed back in 1983. And well, there were some changes made in the 90s as well, but the last major reform was actually back in 1983. And during that reform, for the first time ever, Social Security benefits could actually be taxed. So even though you're paying taxes on your income during your working years that was going to the trust fund, you would think the money that you would finally receive out of the money that you paid in would not also be taxable, but you're actually double taxed. So whenever you receive your Social Security benefit, back in 1983, they made it so up to 50% of your benefit could be taxed. And then later on in 1993, they actually boosted that up to 85% of the amount. And in addition to that, they also gradually raised the full retirement age up to 67. That's also a cut in benefits because you have to wait longer to start receiving your benefit. So over your lifetime, therefore, you'd actually be receiving less benefits. They also made it so those who receive a pension would receive a lesser Social Security benefit. So if you receive both a pension and a Social Security check, because you're receiving the pension, they made it so your Social Security check would be lower than what it normally would be. They also increased the payroll tax from 8% up to 11.4%. Then they increased it once again up to 12.4%. So not only were you having a cut in your benefits, but you were also paying more out of each paycheck into the system, into the trust fund. And they also made self-employed individuals pay more before they didn't have to match the employer and employee total. They'd be paying less because they didn't want self-employed individuals to have to pay more into the trust fund, more than like the 6.2% that it is today. But now you have to pay both the employee and the employer portion. So if you're self-employed, you have to pay 12.4%, whereas if you're just an employee, you have to pay 6.2%. But with that said, let me know in the comment section below, do you trust our current government to get something done to not see another big cut in Social Security benefits? Leave your thoughts in comments below. But that's all we have for today's video. I certainly hope you enjoyed and found value out of it. If you did, again, I would greatly appreciate if you could give this video a like. Consider subscribing to my channel if you have not already, and I will see you in the next video.